What up, world? Established Rich coming right back at you. My next topic, I wanted to get into Culture United episode that Justin Hunt did on his channel. Salute to the company, man. I wanted to give my point of view on it because they were having a debate about which genre in hip hop is the most hated, meaning West Coast, East Coast, down South, and hands down, in my opinion, it is the South. The South is definitely historically and currently the most hated form of hip hop. New York and LA both dismissed the South early on in the beginning. I remember a lot of the artists that I loved in the South would always mimic the West Coast sound. I remember when Dre was popular, a lot of the South music mimicked the sound of the West Coast because we were just trying to still gain respect, not only from the East Coast, but also from the West Coast. So if you look at Uncle Luke, 69 Boys, a lot of the early hip hop that was coming out of the South, you know, it was a lot of bass music, Kilo Ali here in Atlanta. People, they didn't even consider that hip hop at all. You know, they would not even put it, you know, in the category of hip hop. I don't even think it was even nominated for any awards amongst the hip hop nominees back in those days. And, you know, the critics pretty much called it dumbed down rap. So they was too country. I can't understand what they're saying. They talk too slow. You know, at that point in hip hop, you had to sound like New York rappers. You had to use New York slang to even be considered hip hop. So a lot of the slang that, you know, Southern MCs introduced, including OutKast, which was one of the first groups to really be taken seriously lyrically out of the South. You know, they really opened up the door for a lot of lyricists that came out of the South. And if you look at the way Andre 3000 is revered today as an MC, you know, this took decades for him to finally get his respect. You know, it just shows the power of his verses. You know, that his verses can be heard today and you still can get so many different things, you know, out of what he's saying. But if you look at the fun, high energy music that came out from the South in the beginning, we didn't have a chance in hip hop. We were not accepted. And, you know, this is from the beginning of hip hop. So historically, the South has always been the most hated. But let's check out what Justin Hunt and DJ Head had to say on the subject. Let's go.
I want to extrapolate on this point though, because I think every region gets criticized pretty heavy. You know, people criticize the South all the time, and they're doing it now in a lot of different ways. Because I think one, now that the energy shifted again, but the South has been derided since the '90s. You know, when nobody was happy when the South was getting awards at the Source Awards. The West Coast wasn't happy when OutKast got that award.
When you say the West Coast, though, I just want to be clear. Are you saying that people in Eugene, Oregon, had a problem with OutKast winning that award?
No, I'm saying the West Coast representatives in that venue that night were booing as well. They were also booing.
Well, as we learned from the Super Bowl, people who attend the venues are not indicative of the mass population.
Well, that venue had all the rappers in it. So they had all the other peers. And so these are all peers together, booing each other. Okay. Nobody, and perhaps all, but I bring that up because all the regions, again, are very competitive. This is a competitive sport. So I'm not surprised at different criticism that come from different places. It doesn't shock me that there's this energy that, you know, people don't like the West Coast because honestly, I lived in the South without, there was the energy in the South in the 90s and the early 2000s. And in the 2000s definitely was people didn't like the South. The South got too big, too successful for them to care anymore. And they became very critical of other sounds that didn't necessarily work with their music.
I have a question for you then,
critical
Justin.
about regions in general.
So what region would you say have you noticed the most bias towards?
I mean, my reflexes tell me the South, to be honest.
Okay, so
my reflexes tell me the South.
And that's coming from
the South doesn't get credit for lyricism at all.
Exactly where I was going, right? Yeah. So the South got something to say, right?
So you can hear what Justin had to say. You know, even in that Source Awards audience, there was nothing but hate for the South. Because if you remember, 1995, at that time, it was all about East and West Coast. Nobody else mattered. That dominated. I mean, pretty much dominated hip hop. And if you look back, there were so many classic albums that came out that year from artists from the South. But the influence of the South sound on hip hop for the last decade, I would say, if not more, I mean, it's undeniable. You know, sometimes the worst can be first. And that's what happened in the South's case, in my opinion. I think the South has really taken the mantle for hip hop when it comes to music, you know, and I really think the beats, you know, the combination of the bass music with, you know, the trap music, and we've created so many different styles of hip hop just out of this one region that is unbelievable. the influence that the South has, which still makes the South the most hated. Everybody is trying to regain their dominance, but who has it now? We do, at least in my opinion. But what's yours? Like, comment, subscribe, establish rich. I'll be back with another one. You know how I do it. Peace.